Welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, your host, certified fertility awareness practitioner, functional nutrition counselor, and founder of the HA Society, and of course, an HA recovery coach who has walked where you currently are walking. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. So let's dive in. But last thing, nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice, so please seek the advice of your physician. The Holistic HA Practitioner Certification will be opening enrollment as of March 5th. So if you are turning your mess into your message and looking to create a career or adding recovery coaching to your existing health or fitness, personal training type practice, this may be the path that you want to take. We call it the HAP program, and it is an accredited certification and the only certification specifically for HA coaches and practitioners. You will be joining the third ever round of this program that Ashley and I have created, and in it, we have actually laid out our entire framework for working with women with hypothalamic amenorrhea, helping them to recover, regain their fertility, all that good stuff. And we're teaching you everything from the physiology to the intake process, to protocol development, to tracking progress in recovery, making adjustments to someone's protocol in recovery, and all throughout, we're going to be teaching and touching on the soft skills that are needed to actually get buy-in from clients who are in those situations just like you've been in before, so that they can make the meaningful changes that are necessary to recover. If you are interested in this certification, head to our website, thehasociety.com/certification, and you can actually download the full syllabus and learn all about the course on that page. If you're curious and have questions, you can book a call with me. We'll chat about the certification. You can ask me any questions you have, and we can talk through whether or not this certification makes sense for you in the stage of business you're at. The certification starts March 5th, so think about it, get acquainted with it, because once enrollment opens, it's only open for a couple of days. And also, side note, if you sign up within the first 48 hours, you'll get the early bird discount and bonuses. So you'll want to make sure you're on the mailing list for this so that you get the notifications ASAP so you can capitalize on those benefits. All right, guys, enjoy the show.
This is why.
All right, guys, I literally just had to cut Megan off, or else she and I would be chatting all day, every day, and I would never get to pushing play. But this is Ashley Smith and Megan. Megan, how do you say your last name? In my head, it's Vigors. Is that appropriate? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Vigors.
Okay.
Let's not even go down my maiden name like rabbit hole, but saying that you'd probably have a harder time with that one.
Oh, no. Now I have to go down. What is your maiden name?
I mean, it's not hard. My maiden name is spelled Klute. How would you pronounce that?
Clute?
A lot of people say clue. It's Clutie because you say the E as well. No one says the E.
Like, how do you know which ones are silent? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that's okay. See, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole. Anyways, Megan is back. If y'all don't remember, Megan has shared her recovery story, and we just thought, like, there's probably not many people talking about like life after, and we just want to do a way better job of that. And Megan, thankfully, is she's just such an open book and such a great source of wisdom that we're like, you know what, we're gonna bring her on way more frequently, because we want to follow up to, like, what is life after HA? Like, did you die? Was it the worst thing on earth? Like, what happened? And honestly, to be honest, one of like Megan's story potentially could be one of the most extreme cases that we have seen. But I think it's important to share it, because during her whole recovery, she was really having to be like, am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it wrong? And I'm doing it wrong. And even in her extreme case, she did not do it wrong. So anyways, okay, I'm gonna stop talking. Megan, please just recap everybody about your story, like your HA story, wherever you want to start. Because again, if anybody knows about HA, it could be a long story.
Absolutely. I'll try and keep the recap brief just because I did go into more detail in the first episode I was on. But long story short, I started off recovery when I was 89 pounds. And I'm also 5'1", so I'm pretty short as well. So, like, obviously, 89 pounds is really thin, but I wasn't on like death's doorsteps by any means.
But pause. I meant to bring this up today. But like you were very lean. Like, would you say that looking at 89 pounds, you're like, I kind of scare myself?
Oh, absolutely. Like on this side, I was like, yikes. And especially like my hair. My hair is like night and day different. Like I love my hair
Ooh.
now. And when I look back at old pictures, I'm like, oh my God, like where did it go? It was like wispy. But anywho.
Yeah.
But, but yes, I was absolutely lean. I was absolutely anorexic. Like,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I guess I've heard other women's stories where they're like, I was 60 pounds, and I'm like, oh my
I know
God.
that's definitely death's doorstep. I still think you're slightly knocking on death's doorstep at 89 pounds. Obviously you're able to do a whole lot of things, but I think like I remember seeing your picture from 89 pounds and it shook me. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Okay,
and and
not
that
side
and
tangent,
that's and
but
that's fair. And that's fair.
mm,
The reason why actually I like ultimately decided to recover is like randomly like one day like I glimpsed like a view of like my butt and my bare butt and I basically could like see the bone and I was like, oh my
oh
God,
yeah.
like that's not okay. So that's when like it clicked in my head of like, all right, I gotta like do something about this. But anywho, so I decided like I'm gonna recover, and I'm the type of person where I think a lot of us are. It's like I'm gonna do this like all or nothing. So I decided to
No.
so I decided to so I decided to go all in, and within a couple of weeks I ended up getting extreme hunger, and that just shows like how undernourished my body was. So I got extreme hunger, like probably one of the worst cases that I've seen, just being kind of in the HA community. And 2.5 months later, I got my period back. But honestly, like my hunger was still like really high. I mean, I honestly dealt with high hunger for probably 6 months. And what I came to find out, because I didn't weigh myself throughout this whole process, just because I knew like if I stepped on the scale that I would have gone running backwards. And so, like, obviously, like I could tell I was gaining weight. Like, I went up so many sizes. I had to buy so many rounds of clothes, but I ended up gaining 100 pounds. And like, even though
Mhm.
I came from like a really lean place, like that was still a shock to my system. And to be quite frank, like this is the first time I'm like saying this like in a public forum, just because it is such a vulnerable thing to say. And I do still worry about getting judged for
Mhm.
how much weight I've gained. Um, and so, yeah, at that point, like once I had 2 or 3 periods, then I decided, you know what, it's time to start introducing exercise back into my routine. But I just thought it would be good for everyone to know like I was trying to introduce exercise back into my routine, like 100 pounds heavier. Like, regardless again of like how lean I was, like, just imagine even having like a 50-pound weight vest on and someone saying, like, now go exercise.
Yeah, I remember that season for you because like I think like we had kind of known how much you gained weight. And I kind of actually want to pause like real quick of what were the thoughts what were the thoughts while like you were in the process of gaining this weight and being so unsure?
Well,
You know what I mean? Like,
because
you know, yeah,
yeah,
just kind
because
of like run me through that. You know what I mean?
to be quite honest, once I started experiencing extreme hunger, I was on survival mode. I just wanted to do whatever it would take to make the extreme hunger stop because it was just so miserable. My life was so
Mhm,
miserable at
mhm.
that point because I felt like I couldn't even like leave the house because like an hour later I'd be like starving again. And just from like a logistical standpoint, it was honestly kind of a pain in the butt. And like I was just feeling so miserable that I didn't really realize like kind of what was going on outside of that. It was almost like I was in a fog when like I was just trying to get to my initial recovery period. I would say once I got to my third recovery cycle and I was magically recovered. And I'm doing air quotes around recovered because I don't
Yeah.
think I don't consider that me being recovered. That's when it set in and I was like, oh, like I have to figure out how to live life in this body. And that's when, honestly, I would sometimes get panic attacks
Yeah.
just thinking about how I was going to survive in this big body. Cause like I knew it wasn't going to go away anytime soon. Like I knew that I would probably lose weight, but that wouldn't be for like a year.
Yeah. So I think that's so interesting because like I think it can, while it's not easy to say, oh yeah, and then I gained 100 pounds, but to just like gloss over it and be like, yeah, and then I gained 100 pounds, you know what I mean? And not kind of be like, so then the mental struggle of putting on that much weight in this short of time, you know, was real. And, you know, like you were doing something that you had never, ever, ever like done before, right? Think about everybody and or even heard before, or even heard that was okay or healthy. And I'm sure someone will be like, "Oh my gosh, what you did wasn't healthy." And to each their own, as they're still sitting in their own HA with their judgment. So there's that. You know what I mean? But like to really pause and be like, yeah, so like this is happening and this isn't what I want to happen, but at this point we really can't like stop it because you're just so flippin' hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very scary time, but it made me really lean into putting my self-worth outside of how my body looked.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I had to do the work. Like there
Mhm,
was no
mhm.
option but for me to do the work or I would have not like been able to continue moving on like day after day after day. And I had to get to the point where I just would focus on like, can I just, I remember you tell me, you'd be like, can you just live in your body? Just like kind of focus on living in your body. Don't worry like what it looks like. Just, you know, go about, see how you're like feeling on the inside versus like how you look on the outside. So, like, you know, if we're going about our daily lives, like instead of having your weight dictate to you, like, oh, today's going to be a good day because I'm like 2 pounds lighter, you
Mhm,
know, like,
yes, yes. So think about
that,
yeah.
and so then I more would be like, internally, how am I feeling? Do I feel like energized? Do I feel overall just kind of like content and okay? Like, great. That's how I'm gonna like know if today's a good day or a bad day versus letting external factors tell me that.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point is that you had to like figure this out or else it you know what I mean? Like I feel like it was one of those things where it's like, oh, not just like, oh, well, I kind of want to do this. Oh, well, I kind of don't want to do this. Oh, you know, like I am gonna back out of this. It's like, man, if I don't freaking do this, like Like, there's no other way. Like, this is it. Like, we are here. This is it. This is the only way to make like, any movement forward. Does that make, I don't know. Maybe I'm not articulating this correctly, but like, I feel like sometimes whenever we, just from a coaching perspective, like when I see certain clients recover and not have to gain an amount of weight that makes them uncomfortable, they get to choose to not deal with, oh, I find all my worth in my body. You know what I mean? Not saying that it won't come around for them eventually, because everybody has to deal with this. Everyone has to deal with this. I do believe that people who decide to recover in HA, like, we're not going to have the midlife crisis at 50. We're not going to like be the grandma that's like, oh, back in my day, I was a model. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to be like traumatizing our granddaughters with diet culture and anything like that. You know what I mean? But like, everyone has to deal with this. And so it's like, you had to deal with this.
Yeah. I essentially had to put my ego aside. Like that's what I learned over and over again was I had a big ego.
Oh my gosh, yes, we totally talked about this. And this is this is so true for everybody. This is so true for everybody. And anybody who is like really over identifies with exercise or your athletic achievements, you may not know this, but you actually have a really big ego that's just been praised and been okay and culturally accepted. And then whenever you're actually trying to have personal growth, it's the ego that kind of pops up and you're like, I didn't even know I had this sucker this whole entire time, right? And the thing is, like, ego also isn't bad either, but I think it could get a little unbalanced. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so where that really played the biggest role is as I tried to add exercise back in.
Uh-huh.
So So I came from a place, I mean, like all of us here, all of us HAers, like I came from a place where, I was super fit. You would say I was like advanced level fitness, I mean, I was at like the top of my running game where I'm running marathons, I am running like 6 something minute mile, like pace for like a half marathon to marathon, so it's like in my running group, it's like I was always known as the fast person and I was just achieving these goals left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I did sustain like a sciatic nerve injury. And so then that's what took me out for a while. And also, I think pushed me to recover because I just wanted to get over that injury as well. And so I stopped exercise for 5 months completely, gained 100 pounds. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try running again. And I remember the first time I tried running again, like just imagine you even put on a 50-pound weight vest and someone said, go run.
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally thought like my body was broken or like didn't work anymore. Like before I was used to running where I had almost no body fat, so nothing jiggled when I ran.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
so
no.
and so
Not at 89 pounds. No, no.
so when I tried running again and I have boobs, I have a butt, I have a belly, like
You
everything.
like all of a sudden have thighs. You're like, what is this?
Yes.
Chafing?
Yes, it's
You,
just
yeah.
it's like so much was jiggling that it just like horrified me. And it just, my body was 100% foreign to me. 100% foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like,
Mm-hmm.
the most I'd ever weighed in my life before all this was like 120 pounds. And that was when I thought I was fat at 120 pounds, So it's like my body has no clue what this new weight feels like or anything like that. And I just was so demoralized after that run. And I literally thought, you know what, maybe I'm just never going to run again. Like maybe this is what HA recovery means. Maybe this is why everyone was so worried about if they would ever be able to run again, if they would ever be able to exercise again. I was like, maybe this is why. Like, this is just too hard. I'm too ashamed of the level of fitness I'm at that I almost wanted to give up right then and there and not even try because I was utterly a beginner.
Yes. Talk more about that because I remember that conversation. You're like, Ashley, no, like can't. I can't, like run. I don't think I can freaking do it. Right? Like you're just like, I don't know how to communicate to you that my body, like, I don't think I can actually run it. So that
Yeah.
was, I'm sure, probably the biggest fear coming crashing down and being like, see, this is why you should have never done it. This is why you
Yeah.
should have never gone into recovery. Look what happened. And so it was like, it was almost like the second wave of doubt, right? So, like the first wave, well, probably the third wave of doubt. I would say your first wave was like, why am I gaining all this? What is going on? I'm doing recovery wrong. And then the second wave was probably like the extreme hunger, like, what did I do to deserve this? Why is this so extreme? Why do I feel like an extreme case? And then the third one was like, I broke my body. See, weight gain's the devil. I broke my body. I physically can't run. And I remember you trying to explain to me, no, like I physically can't run, Ashley. You know what I mean? And I was
I'm smiling super big at all this because I'm just like, yep, that was exactly my mindset. And the crazy part is I was so like focused on how like good I used to be at running that the thought didn't even cross my mind that, oh, maybe I have to first begin running and walking. Like in my mind, I just assumed I should, like the I should statements, like I should just be able to like pick back up where I left off, or bare minimum, like I should be able to just go run a mile right now. In my mind, like that was just, you can't get any lower than that. So it didn't even cross my mind for probably like a week or two of like, oh, sometimes people have to like walk run in order to build their base. And again, it was just lessons over and over again of me having to check my ego. Like I just
yes.
consistently, like day after day, I just had to check my ego because where I had to start from, I would do like 15 to 20-minute runs and I would jog very slowly for a minute and then walk 3 minutes and then,
Which was
do
so
that over and
humbling.
over.
Which was
Oh,
so humbling. I remember
absolutely.
how humbling this was. You're like, Ashley, I'm trying to tell you that I can't. You're like, I don't know how to tell you this. I cannot run in this body. And I remember being like, no, she's right. I know what she's saying because I remember in the midst of my recovery, and for reference, I had to gain 40 pounds, right? And so for a while, I thought I was like the highest person. Well, and I was like, well, if I didn't die, you're not going to die too. So everyone's going to be okay. Everyone just hang on. You know what I mean? Anyways, but I remember as I was gaining weight, and I thankfully was still able to work out, but it's a completely different workout than what I was doing for a million reasons. And that's not what this podcast is about. But I remember I was squatting one time and my body felt so foreign that as I was squatting, I didn't believe it was my body. I was like, it was a sensation. I was like, I've never, like, this is not me. And I had to look in the mirror and be like, okay, it looks like I know that's me, but like what I'm feeling is not me. Okay, you know what I mean? Because like something had felt different in my hip pocket when I was squatting. Like it was hips that I had not felt before, right? But I remember one of the things, and this is how I knew that ego was like holding you back and was going to be your limiting belief. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like, we've got to bust through this or else this is going to be her limiting belief. And I was like, Megan, do you think that you're the first heavier person or heavy set person to ever run in the history of mankind or something like that? I had said something like that, and you're like, that's a good point. And then you like pushed through and did amazing. Like, I was just like, you go, girl. I don't know. But that's when I knew. I was like, oh, this is ego. This is ego that's at play.
Yeah, it was definitely a humbling experience. And honestly, what it took is, as you always, to quote you, what you always said is like, slow is fast. And so what that meant is I just took everything super slowly, but I was consistent. Like every
Mhm.
week, like I think I started running like 1 day a week, and then I bumped it up to like 2 days a week. And honestly, for probably at least 3 months, I had to do the run walk. And then probably at like month 4, I finally like felt like I could solidly run for like maybe 20 minutes, and I finally felt like a glimmer of how my running used to feel. But then again, I still kept it like very slow. Like I would, for the longest time, I would just run like 2 miles at a time. And the approach that I took was to keep, because throughout this whole time I kept my cycle consistent. Like I would say by month 5, like my cycle was pretty darn consistent. Like it was always between 32 to 34 days long. And so how I was able to keep it consistent is because essentially for like a month, for like a cycle, I would do the same thing. Like let's say I ran 2 miles for like 2 days a week. And if like all was good with my cycle, I was like, great, I'm gonna bump it up to like 3 miles, And so it's like I kept taking it at like a month at a time. And if I ever saw any type of like wobble or like variability in my cycle, I would just like hold there to let my body catch up. And now I've been back running for a little over a year. So at the beginning of the year, I couldn't run. I had to
Ashley,
run
I
walk.
cannot run. I don't know how to explain this to you.
And now being over a year running consistently again, over a year being recovered, I still only run twice a week, but I also weight lift 3 days a week. So in total, it's 5 days a week of working out. But I run 6 miles on my shorter day, and then my long runs, I'm up to 8 miles, and I'm running like a 9:30 pace. And
Dude,
I'm
I just love this. I love this for so many reasons because the thing is that we just had someone who recovered and then went full crazy and ran like 10 miles a week, like, like over the week. And of course, she lost her cycle. You know what I mean? It's just like, but you can actually get there. Like, I love that you're breaking this down because you can run and ovulate. You can run long distances. You can run and lift and ovulate. That is not off the table. But you can't just go ham after your third ovulatory cycle and think that like you can go straight up to like 10 miles. Like that's just like not how the body works. Like I always like to like equate it to like just because you get the cast off your foot doesn't mean that you go join a double dutch competition that day. And that's exactly what happens whenever we don't allow our body to like build up.
Hey, are you trying to recover and maybe even fall pregnant naturally? I thought that might be you. And if so, we have created our best ever yet resource for you. Totally free. This is a masterclass. I've called it my masterclass because I have put everything into this, right? This masterclass is designed for you if you have HA or have had HA and are dealing with suboptimal cycles and you're serious about restoring those babies to full optimization and you want to create the ideal foundation for a pregnancy. This is going to be for you. So, in this masterclass, I'm going to provide you a lot of things, including a lot of case studies, mine, Ashley's, and Mishi's, as well as lots of our past clients and what their challenges were and what they had to do to overcome it. And we cover a really wide variety of types of cases of HA. So everything from primary amenorrhea and missing periods for years and years to short-term amenorrhea and what we did to handle that situation as well, and how long it took these people to go from HA to pregnant with this system, and how long it took them to go from HA to ovulating, of course, with this system. So lots of information, lots of case studies, lots of stats. We go through why this is not a weight gain plan and how we actually divide you into phases, the 3 phases of HA, and determine what your starting point is so that you have a good idea of where you need to start with your actual changes and lifestyle and nutrition changes. We even cover questions like HA and people with a normal BMI and recovery for people who have had HA for too long. There's so much in this 60-minute masterclass. Yo, I'm impressed. And at the end, I'll also be running you through how to get a free HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis through us, which is a part of our process for recovery and preconception clients that we're happily going to give you for free $99 as a massive thank you, of course, for joining the masterclass. So go to thehasociety.com/masterclass or head to our website and you'll find a link for it and find when the next available presentation is going to be. That's thehasociety.com/masterclass.
That's absolutely right. And think about it this way, because after my second recovery cycle, I did try to run again. And I would say, like, for my third and fourth like recovery cycles, I did try running again, and then I think I stopped for a month, and I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm tired of like yo-yoing, if you will, because I remember I had to make the big decision to stop exercising to get my first period back. And then as I was trying to add exercise back in, I was like, you know what, I'm so tired of like trying to do something, then having to change like my whole routine again. Like I just wanted to get in like a steady, consistent routine. Like routines feel good to me. It makes me feel good.
Soccer,
And
you know what I mean?
and so I just told myself, I'm like, look, I would rather go too slow than too fast. You know,
Oh,
because
so
then
good.
if I go too slow, I'll never have to cut back again. Because I think that's what annoyed me the most is I'm the type of person that it's kind of like once I taste what I can have, I don't want it taken away from me. Like if you're gonna give me like a bite of cake, I want the whole piece. Don't just like give me a bite of the cake, you know? So in my mind, I was like, if I just go slow, and I also told myself, I'm like, I have my whole life to run. Like I
Yes.
like I want to be running in my 80s. I want to be one of those
Yes.
like old women where they're like, how is she still running? And so that's what, whenever I get the urge to just like take off and just go like balls to the wall, I just remind myself like I'm only 33 now. You know, like I have hopefully like another 40 years of running. So like
Yes.
what am I racing towards except for my ego? Like
Mm.
there's nothing
Mm.
else. Like I'm not a professional runner.
Yeah.
You know,
So, oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes. And so anybody that goes straight into it is anyone that goes straight into it, either one just lacks the knowledge, two is just so worried about serving their ego that they risk everything that they've worked for, every, like they've ovulated, they've restored ovulation, they're cycling, and now you have the opportunity to have it, kind of to have it all. Like you now have the opportunity to run and ovulate, but like you chose just to serve your ego in a really short term, like I don't know, probably 3 to 4 weeks before your cycle gets wonky. I mean, hello, like you, meaning that like you going ham only has a lifespan of 4 weeks before you're back into an energy deficit, because you probably didn't also fuel for those miles that you just instantly put back on. Right. And so I think
Yeah.
that I think ego really, people think it's like, oh my gosh, no, my weight's keeping me, or I can't run it in a body like this. And none of those things are true. The thing that's keeping you from making progress in the area of your life that you want is probably your ego.
100%. Like,
It's like
and
professionally trying new things. The reason why you don't try new things is because your ego. You don't,
absolutely.
yeah. Like it's not because you can't learn. It's not because you can't do it. It's because you won't let yourself be a beginner, which brings me back to what you had said about being a beginner.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the reason why I wanted to share how much weight I gained, because again, I don't find joy in just shouting that to the rooftops of the world because
Yeah.
it's very stigmatizing. But I bring that up because I want to show, like, if I'm the most extreme case you've heard of, and I was able to add running back in or whatever your form of exercise is, like that means you can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be open and vulnerable because I know it helps other women, and selfishly it gives purpose to my recovery journey because then it makes me feel like this is more than just me, and that it makes me more okay with my journey the more people that I can help, because I honestly have moments where I second guess myself and I'm like, do I really want to share all this? Do I really want to be like super vulnerable? Because like these are super personal moments. Like these are embarrassing moments, but I always push myself to share because I know that it helps other women.
Yeah. And I think almost just it's almost embarrassing because not because it itself is embarrassing, but because it's just there, like you're not going to find anyone that's like, yep, that's 100% healthy and okay and you did the right thing, right? But yet like you're going, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure if like a doctor was like listening to this, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that was the worst advice. I can't believe that." You know what I mean? But they're also the ones saying that you can't heal HA, and they're also the ones that are trying to give hormone replacement, you know what I mean, and birth control. And it's like, no, like you solved it. It just wasn't in a way that everybody agrees with
Absolutely. I mean,
or like accept. You know what I mean?
right. Like there's weight bias by doctors both ways. When I was 89 pounds, part of the reason why I went down this whole path of figuring out I had HA is because I had breakthrough bleeding from the pill, and I got a full blood panel done, and my blood sugar was like in the 40s. It was so low, like if your blood sugar is under 60, they say that people pass out and are go to the hospital. And
Yeah, like it's a problem.
so
Yeah.
they called me like in the evening, like at 8 o'clock at night, and I'm like, why are you calling me? And they're like, are you okay? Like people are usually in the hospital with this blood sugar level. And so they're like, well, you have to come back in to get retested because like we have to make sure you're like okay. And so I was like, all right, whatever. And I went back in and I retested and I was at 63. So I was barely like above passing. And when I talked to the doctor, I was like, oh, I run a lot of marathons. Like I'm just a big runner and this and that. And he was just like, yeah, that makes sense. And so he just let me continue walking along, being anorexic, being underweight. Like everyone saw my weight. Everyone, all
Yeah.
the doctors knew I was underweight, but do you think any of them stopped and said, hey, maybe you should gain a little weight? And like, did you know you're like tanking all your hormones? Like, no one ever said that to me. So that's what I like to remind myself when I then have unpleasant experiences being in a
Mhm.
larger body because I'm like, you know what? It goes both ways.
Yeah, and I
It's
feel like you even because you've had such a wild transformation, you know what I mean? And not even transformation physically, but like health-wise. Health-wise, you've had such a wild transformation. Like, I feel like you've even now been able to be like, "Oh, there is a thing such as thin privilege, people." And I would have never been able to agree with you on that before, but lo and behold, it's real.
oh, absolutely. I sometimes cringe at like what I used to think and say out loud. Like I remember when like then privilege start getting more popular and brought up, and I literally was like, what is thin privilege? Like that's not a
Mhm.
thing. Like people are just jealous. Like this and that. And now I'm like, oh my God. Like I understand completely. Like it goes back to if you've been in a position where you've never felt othered, like
Mm,
count yourself lucky. But the reason why people throw out words like thin privilege or white privilege or things like that is because those people feel like they're on the outside. You know,
mhm,
like it doesn't feel good when you feel on the outside and you don't feel like you belong. And like the best thing like we all can do in those moments is like truly listen to people when they
mhm.
start bringing things up like that and don't just dismiss them because like no one, no matter, and like I know I'm going on a tangent and getting on a soapbox, but like
Go, 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 girl.
like no one should ever feel like othered or like they don't belong or they can't show up in a
Mm,
certain establishment or like they literally want to stay home rather than like go out and live life. Like if
mhm.
people feel that way, we as a society have done something wrong.
Yeah, to not, yeah.
Make them feel included.
Yeah. And so how much, I mean, obviously there like is thin privilege. You be like, I can attest. I have I have been on the dishing outside and now I've been on the receiving side. But so how did you start living your life being like, well, I actually don't need y'all's approval of my journey. I don't need, you know what I mean? Like, how did you get back to doing the things that you love, which is like running?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah. How did you do it, Megan?
I I went through a depressive episode after I would say I got my third recovery period because I'm so goal oriented that in my mind I was
Mhm.
like, got the first period. Now I'm like laser focused on getting my second period, laser focused on getting my third period. And then I felt like once I was quote unquote recovered, it was like I was just released back into the wild. And I had to like figure out this like new life I was living. And that was just not happening for like 3 months. Like I just
Yeah.
that's when I like fully took in like what my body looked like and just I had enough brain power at that point to like fully take everything in and I just couldn't. I couldn't deal with the world. I couldn't deal going out in public in my larger body. I was just too self conscious. Like, I could barely get myself to go outside on walks just because, like, I didn't want my neighbors, like,
Mhm.
seeing me in this larger body. And I got to a certain point, like, there was two catalysts. I got to a certain point where I just got tired of that. I was like, you know
Mhm.
what? Like, I just want to go live my life again. And the second big catalyst was I got laid off and I lost my
Mm.
job. So, like, I had to rejoin society because I had to pay bills and get a new job. And
Hi, society. I know I've been hiding, but now I would like a job, please.
and it was just such a crazy time because when you have to find a job, going through the job interviewing process is one of the most scrutinizing processes you can
Oh
go
my
through
God.
because people are judging you left and right to figure out if you're worth investing in
It
as
is
an
a true
employee.
judgment situation. Like no one's
Yeah.
like making up. Then no, like this is true judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so honestly, like my the motivation to find another livelihood and not lose my home was part of why I just had to get to the point where I was like, you know what? In the body that I'm in, like I'm hoping, like I'm praying that like in a year's time I start to lose some of this weight, but this isn't happening today. So how am I going to live life today? And so I just started taking the baby steps of like, okay, like got to get new clothes. Like I had to get all new interviewing clothes because none of that
Mhm.
fit, So it's just one step after the other. And like once I just started like surviving events and not dying
Not
from
dying.
embarrassment, I was just like, you know what? I can do this. And luckily, like I had a good support system around me as well. I have a very
Yeah.
loving husband where like bless his heart, like through this whole process, he has done nothing but like stand by my side and told me that I'm beautiful no matter what weight I've been at. And if anything, he was the one telling me like you were sick. You were sick. You
Mhm.
can't go back there.
Yeah. I love that. And like I do feel like it was one of those things because like I remember that time too. And I was like, look here. First off, it is okay. Like everyone's like, oh my gosh, she like took 3 months to process. No, people like, wow, I'm sure it's not enjoyable. Let's be real. But
No, I
yeah,
wouldn't
like no
recommend
one's,
it.
but I think sometimes we're like, I think in society, we don't allow ourselves to process things. And so to take time to process is like so taboo, so flippin' taboo to take time and process. You know what I mean? Because your journey was a fast and a furious. You know what I mean? It was very fast and furious, and there's no way that you could have been processing all along. So, like, you needed to process. And so, what that you weren't processing out in the sunshine, you know what I mean? Doing like an influencer like routine or what, you know what I mean? Like, but like you processed it. So, who's to say that like successful processing looks like blank? Because at the end of the day, whatever your processing looked like, you still were like, when push come to shove, you're like, okay, so we're doing this interview thing, which by the way, y'all, Megan is one of those people who gets a million interviews. I don't know about you, but I do not get a million callbacks. Like it's either you meet me in person and you love me and you hire me on the spot, or like I get the cold shoulder. I don't know. Next, I mean, I'm never leaving this job, but if I was to ever, I'm gonna have Megan write my cover letter and my resume because I don't know what magical juju she's got on. But to the point of like, then you have to go straight from hiding to immediately into interviews, which is pure judgment.
100%.
And I think even then you were realizing, oh my gosh, I think I lead with my body the past times I was in it. Like, how do I show up for what I can do without relying on my body? Like, how do I connect with people without relying on my body? How do I articulate? Well, if y'all can tell, Megan is very well spoken, but how do I articulate and how do I um like really communicate with these people that I am the best fit without leading with my body?
And just to clarify, like what leading with my
Oh yeah,
body
yeah.
means is that's what gave me my confidence
Mm-hmm.
because I was totally one of those people who was like, oh, if I'm in a thinner body than you, like I'm better than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I couldn't get my confidence from my body. Like I truly had to let my personality shine through and I was a little worried if my personality was, I guess, good enough, if you will, that people would still like me. And it was a scary process. And I totally fell flat on my face sometimes. I succeeded other times. And in the end, it was a little bit of good old luck as well that helped get me my next job. But I think the one other like soapbox moment I want to have is this is why we don't comment on people's bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That is how your self-worth gets tied to your body. Like, no matter if you're in a thin body or a large body, because like my whole life I was in a thin body, and I had a ton of comments where people commented on my body saying, praising me for being thin. I remember
Mm-hmm.
my dad one time told me I was a kid growing up. I think I was like 12. I was always short and thin, and I played competitive softball, and that's like the one area where being short and thin is not an advantage. So I remember telling my dad, like, oh, I wish I was in a larger body, because I wanted to just compete. Like at that point, as an 11-year-old, I didn't have all this like body issue stuff. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I wish I was in a larger body so like I could compete better with these other girls. And he was like, oh, you'll be thankful when you're older that you have this small, thin body. So like he was already like
Yeah.
getting it into my head that like it would
Stay
be
here, stay this
better to be
size,
thin.
don't get any bigger. This, yeah. Oh,
And so and so
yeah.
it's and so if we're always like praising people for their appearance and this and that, then you equate that to your worth. And when I got into a larger body, most people, 99% of people wouldn't say anything about my larger body, but all the praise on my appearance stopped.
Like,
And
see, like,
the silence is deafening. Like even though
mhm.
they didn't say anything, like I knew.
Mhm.
I knew what they were thinking because they weren't giving me praise as they used to. So
Yeah.
that's why it's like we should all really focus on, can you praise people for like their personality, their
Mhm.
determination, like their aspirations,
Yeah.
or just say you look good. Don't say you look good. Have you lost weight?
Oh my
It's
God.
like
Yes.
why does looking good have to equate to losing weight?
Totally. Totally. So now that, and I'm excited to bring you back in like a 3 months to be like, and now what are you doing? You know what I mean? So I remember, I'm pretty sure I remember your first community call, and I was like, look, like you can get your life back. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And now I feel like you're on that journey of getting your life back. And getting your life back does not mean being in a smaller body, everybody. So let's just like throw that out there for anyone that's thinking about it. You know what I mean? So what does life look like now for you? And
Wow.
how do you navigate leaving your body alone? That might be a loaded question for like
Yeah, no,
training
no,
six.
I no, I think that's a fair question and I have a good answer.
Oh, okay, okay, go girl.
So what life looks like for me now is how can I do things that I enjoy doing? So obviously, I do love to run. I run every week. I actually started meeting up with one of my old running buddies again. So I meet up with her every Thursday to
Oh,
go running. And
good.
honestly, it's so nice to have those little things during the week. You know, life looks like I said, I work out 5 days a week now. I weight lift 3 days a week. I run 2 days a week. I'm, at my newest job. I've been here for 6 months now. I'm loving my job. I'm able to wholeheartedly focus all of my attention because I'm actually working with one of my old bosses again, and I knew her when I was anorexic. And she actually made a comment to me one day where she's like, you just seem so like focused and engaged. And I'm like, that's so interesting that you say that, probably because when I worked for her before, I was so wrapped up in like my eating and workout schedule that I probably wasn't like the most focused employee. So just hearing comments like that just really brings joy to my heart. You know, my husband and I feel like have reconnected on a better level. We've done a bunch of like repair work, you
Mhm.
know. I am also doing Toastmasters again once a week. That was something I had to again work up the courage to get back to doing. So
And
I
tell
feel,
people what that is.
oh, Toastmasters is to work on your public speaking. So one of the like biggest fears that we all can have when again you're getting judged.
She's a glutton for punishment. No.
Apparently,
No, but it's so good because the thing is like you in fact didn't lose your job. You in fact got a job while in a bigger body. You you know what I mean? Like your husband didn't leave you. Like you know what I mean? Like your legs are not broken. You know what I mean? Like you are in fact able to run. You you know what I mean? Like you're actually running pretty long distances, you know, like you're building strength, all these things. And like you're starting to like maybe selectively meet with certain like running people that's not damaging to your mental health, right?
yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
like, yeah, go ahead.
And what I also wanted to break down too was because some people may be thinking, like, oh, well, you're working out 5 days a week again. Like, sounds like you could be going back to what you were doing, like pre HA recovery, you know? And what I would say to that is it's 100% in the mindset. Like pre
Mm-hmm.
HA recovery, like I had to stick to my workout schedule no matter what. Like, no matter what was happening, what emergency was coming up, like, I had to stick to my workout. If my body was tired, I couldn't take a rest day. Like, I just pounded my body. And also, the reason why I wanted to work out so hard was because that's the only way I just thought that I deserved to eat and have food and fuel myself. Now, on the flip side, being recovered and working out 5 days a week, I work out because I enjoy it. I enjoy moving my body. I enjoy the endorphins and the release I get. I enjoy being outside and running, feeling the sunshine, exploring new places. And if I'm just like really tired one day, I'm extra sore, like I take an extra rest day. Like a perfect example is on Sunday, I pushed myself a little harder on my long run than I normally do. And so then I remember on Monday, I was like, oh, my legs are like extra sore. And I was doing like an upper body strength workout. So I was like, meh, like it's fine, whatever. Then come Tuesday, like my legs were still sore from running, and I was supposed to do a leg day workout. And I was just like, you know what? My legs are too sore. Like, I can't do like a heavy leg day. So I just did body weight leg exercises. And even though I didn't get like as hard of a workout in that day, like I still ate the same amount of food. You know, I still fueled myself properly and didn't have the thought of like, well, because I didn't work out hard today, that means I have to cut back on my calories to like make up for it.
Yeah, it's completely different. And again, the reminder is that you can get back to your life, but you have to address the mindset and the motive behind it. And you have to be willing to set your ego aside and do things slow. Like you
Yeah.
have to. Like,
And
yeah,
what was
yeah,
that
go
other
ahead.
what was that other question you asked me? What was the second part to the question where I was like, I have a good answer for that?
Less. I feel like it was so good that I just let it come out of my mouth and then
Was it something like how do I like live in my larger body and like even if people don't like and not worry about what other people say or something?
oh my
I feel like
gosh,
it's such a good question.
it was a good question. You know, someone messaged in. Y'all like listen back to it. And maybe that'll be what we pick up on next time because I can't remember for the life of me.
No, it was just so good that it slipped our minds. Sorry for the letdown, everyone. I like built that up and then we can't remember.
Well, that means that you're going to listen to part 3 of Megan's story. And so I'm excited to kind of just see where she's at. Um, yeah, I feel like part of the question came back. Now I can't. Now, like, I can't even focus. Okay. Okay. Well, there it is.
Oh, I
What is
remember
it?
it. It was
What is
something
it?
along the lines of like, how do I like stop myself from like going back to my old body or something?
No, I did say that living your life now doesn't like regaining your life isn't you going back to a smaller body.
Yeah, so I think it was like, how do you stop? How do I like keep myself from like, I guess I
Mhm.
think doing damaging behavior, something like that. I'll just add this like
Yeah.
my my recovery was so horrific that I never want to experience that again. And also, too, I'm just in a place of such awe and gratitude for my body that honestly, all I want to do is nourish it and take care of it. And I heard this on another podcast where, you know, there's like a happy medium to everything because taking care of your body is making sure that you nourish it enough, but also it's not that we overstuff ourselves because that's not taking care of yourself either, because then you're putting too much like strain on your
Mhm.
body. If and this is more so like once you're recovered and stuff, like I totally get it. You kind of have
Yeah.
to eat above and beyond like when you're trying to get your first period back, but like when you're recovered and you're like trying to find a happy middle ground again, it's just about like nourishing yourself to satiety. And it doesn't mean you always have to like overeat. And that's what we're saying, like health and taking care of your body is. Like, I promise there is a middle ground on
Mhm.
the other side of this. And I don't know if this will quail anyone's fears. I talked about gaining 100 pounds. I don't weigh myself anymore, but I also know that I'm losing some of the weight as well. And my body is finding
Oh,
a
I
middle
remember it.
ground.
I remember it. But we're out of time. But the question is, how do you leave your body alone?
Oh, and basically what I just said is like my journey HA recovery was too horrific. Don't want to go back there. And also, like, I'm just so focused on taking care of it. And I just want to feel strong. Like, I
Mhm.
love running and feeling strong. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep my body in good fighting condition so I can keep doing the things that I love.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Megan, Biggers, Clutie, Vigors, Megan Clutie Vigors, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm so excited to have you on in a couple months to let us know what next thing that you're going through, post recovery, all those different types of things, all of it. So, again, thank you for spending your time with us.
And one other plug on my end
Oh,
is
yes.
if you want to hear more from me, I did start a blog just because I
Yes,
needed an outlet to like process all of that. So I'm sure Ashley and Mishu will put it in the show notes. But
absolutely.
if you want to hear more about my story, you can go there.
Yes, y'all need the details. Like, get the deets, all of it. All right. Thank you, babe.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey there, it's me, Danny, and I want to tell you about Temp Drop as a fertility awareness method tracking option. So, many of you guys know that we actually recommend the fertility awareness method both as you're going through recovery and 100% after you have gotten some cycles back and you're starting to move forward for the rest of your reproductive years. So, Temp Drop itself is a wearable fertility monitor, and we love it. It's a wearable device, so you put it around your arm, and you can use that instead of taking your temperature manually with a thermometer each morning. So I'm personally a big fan of the manual tracking. All of us at the HA Society are, and that's the method that we use. Just using a good old thermometer. We use that with our clients because it's the best way to use it as a diagnostic tool as a practitioner. And it's also the best way to ensure if you're trying to avoid pregnancy that you don't get pregnant. However, manual temping for many reasons is just not always an option. When you're in the middle of recovery, again, we do recommend manual temping, but once you're cycling, the temp drop is actually a really great hack. So it gives you basically everything you need to effortlessly track your fertility status, like where you are in your monthly cycle. So you wear the temp drop sensor while you're sleeping for accurate basal body temperature readings without the stress of early morning wake ups. So I personally love this because with a toddler, my wake up times are all over the place, and the occasional sleep disruptions make using an oral thermometer a lot more difficult. So, Tempdrop's accompanying charting app enables you to track an array of symptoms alongside your basal body temperature. This includes tracking your cervical mucus if you've been using OPKs, and then it also gives you sleep insights too. So you can combine these fertility signs all in one place, and that will help you identify your fertile window, confirm ovulation, plan for your period, and if you're trying to get pregnant, identify whether or not you are pregnant. So whether you're trying to conceive or avoiding pregnancy, or you want to chart for health reasons like HA recovery, making sure your cycle's not slipping back in the HA direction, Tempdrop makes fertility awareness accessible to all women, even if you don't have regular cycles or sleeping patterns. So track your ovulation in real time with the Tempdrop, and we are lucky enough to have a 15% off code. So if you go to their website, they're usually having a sale, but you can stack this code on top of the existing code. So just go to tempdrop.thehasociety.com and use the code AFHA Society. I think too, if you just go to tempdrop.com and use AFHA Society at the checkout, that will work too. So happy temping and good luck. This episode is brought to you by Grassland Nutrition beef liver capsules. Did you know that in terms of nutrient density, beef liver actually blows vegetables and fruits out of the water? If you're a client of mine, you have already been instructed to eat beef liver either fresh or in capsule form. I recommend it for anyone and everyone who is, of course, dealing with amenorrhea and fertility challenges out there, but I may even recommend it for just everyone in general. Get your husbands on it, get your partners on it. If you have a history of HA and add on top of that maybe a history of the pill, maybe you've been pregnant before, through treatments or other, your body's been through anything, you're absolutely 100% dealing with a nutrient deficiency of some kind. And while it's true that testing is going to be the best way to understand those exact deficiencies, eating nutrient-dense, real food is going to be one of the most important next steps that you take with or without testing. So I've been using and recommending Grassland Nutrition beef liver capsules for years now. And the capsule form makes it so easy to get your liver in every day. And I appreciate the transparency of this product in particular above others. So in case you're wondering, it's completely natural. This is freeze-dried beef liver in capsules. It's organic, it's made from Australian beef, and my favorite of their products is the liver with kelp because of the iodine from the kelp, which is important for overall thyroid function, which is often low in women with underperforming hormones. So rather than eat seaweed snacks every day, I get to take this beef liver with the kelp for my iodine. So if you're recovering or working on a fertility journey right now, do not skimp the nutrient-rich source of beef liver. Get 10% off your order with the HA Society and support your favorite podcast along the way. They ship to most countries, so you should be covered. Just go to grasslandnutrition.net and use HA Society, just HA Society, at the checkout for the 10% off. That's grasslandnutrition.net with the code HA Society. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women